So before I begin this video, I want to make sure all of you out there who may be watching this understand two things. One, I am not a videographer. I don't pretend to be. Don't complain about it. Don't tell me I could do things better, because I know I can if I was a professional videographer. So if you don't like the video, I apologize, don't watch it. Number two, I am not a mechanic. I am a retired guy that likes taking on certain projects, and I thought this was one I could easily do, and I could definitely do it. I don't know how easily. So what this project is I have a 2001 Chevy 2500 HD with a 6.0 liter Vortec engine. I have learned through lots of articles and videos that GM has serious issues with the older vehicles breaking exhaust manifold bolts, and I'm told if you get to a stoplight and roll down your window next to any GM with the 5.3, the 6.0, a number of engines, that you will hear the ticking sound of exhaust manifold leaks. And I'm sure people have heard mine, because watch what I did. So there's a couple of ways to attack the problem. The right way is to pull the exhaust manifolds out, take the heads off, and fight to get the remnants of the exhaust manifold bolts out in a whole bunch of different ways. And there are dozens of YouTube videos on how to do that. I was told through YouTube videos and just my experience with mechanics that that is a huge job, 1,500 and up, for a whole bunch of reasons. So this truck has almost 209,000 miles on it, a lot of rust. I don't want to spend that kind of money. So I learned that Dorman and Kral, two companies, make clamps that bolt into place in holes, threaded holes, already on the head. And I'm going to show you one, and I'll zoom in and point it out. This is on the driver's side rear. You can see the bolt, you can see the clamp right down there. That's the bolt, and the clamps onto the back. Now I'm showing you that one first because that was one of the hardest to get in. The easiest way to do that is to take a heat shield off, which is just held on by three, it's either 8 or 10 millimeter bolts. It's this one right here, and that gives you a bunch of room to work. So I would highly recommend, if you're going to put one of those clamps on, that you take that heat shield off and have a friend helping you. I had my wife, and together we were able to work that clamp into place, because the bolts, you're working blind. I was working underneath, she was helping me from the top. So difficult, but relatively doable by anybody if I can do it. So that is a Dorman clamp, as is this one, which is a front driver's side, and it's located right there. And the reason I have two is because that bolt for the exhaust manifold was broken off, as was the front over here. And these are two different clamps. Dorman and Kral both sell these clamps for the driver's side rear, driver's side front, 2 different clamps. You can go online and on YouTube, people show you how to put both of them in. Again, I'm not demonstrating how to put them in, but the front one was very easy to get in. And you can see the bolt, the cinch bolt is located right there. Definitely get to it. And I used a torque wrench, my Harbor Freight torque wrench, and I torqued them down. Dorman, I think, indicated that they want you to torque them down to 18 foot-pounds. Kral, I think it was 37 or 36. So I torqued them down in accordance with what I was told to do. Now I'm going to go over to the passenger side so I can show you what's happening over here. On the passenger side, I actually had 3 bolts that were broken. Now I'm going to show you the rear, which is right here. And the only thing that was difficult about this one, see it right there? And here's the cinch bolt, was the oil dipstick tube. I was told that through various websites that this is notorious for rusting out. So whatever you do, be incredibly careful, because you don't want to have to replace that. Again, not a big project, but what's the big deal? Now, the most interesting one, oh, and I should point out that both Dorman and Kral on this motor, the 6.0, and I think on all of them, driver side front, passenger side rear, it's the exact same clamp. Driver side rear, passenger front is the exact same clamp. So caddy corner, think about that. Now this one, which is right, you can see it. Here's the, let me get in there. There's the cinch bolt right there. See it? Right there. It's kind of behind the EGR tube, and I'm going to explain something to you now. So Dorman's clamp, I bought it initially, and I started looking at this, and I realized that my EGR valve right here is on a bracket, and the Dorman clamp uses one of the bolts and locations of the bolts to go down here. It's on the other side. I'm sorry, both the Dorman and the Kral do this, but Dorman's does not fit in between the head and the bracket, because you got to slip it in their clamp. You have to slip it in between them. And I emailed Dorman, and they said they had no workaround. I then emailed Kral, and they said their clamp does indeed work with the EGR valve bracket. You pull the bracket out a little bit, you slip the clamp in, you use the 2 EGR valve bolts to go back in, and one of their bolts, there's 3 holes back here, 2 for the bracket, and there's a 3rd one in the head that you use. And the only thing that I would recommend to Kral in the future is if they would give a bushing, or do what I did. I used 3 washers, because the clamp goes here, which pushes the bracket out, and you need to fill that space up. So a bushing, a bolt, washers. It was a fun time getting the washers on those because there's not a lot of room to work. But I got it done and I cinched it up and it seems to be working fine. And another hint with this front part here, just like the hint of getting the heat shield off before you do the driver's side rear, I would take the EGR valve off. There's two 10mm bolts, easy peasy, just get it out of the way. I also moved the air intake. That gave me a lot of additional room, and once I did that, it was relatively easy. Getting those washers on over here was not easy, but I got it done. And then the last bolt I have, which is in the middle, Dorman does not make a single clamp.